right, we'll get going here. So, hi, I'm Allison Corbin. I'm a senior project manager with Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority. And I have the distinct pleasure of introducing George Bailey. So, George Bailey has a voluminous background as an educator in the state of Montana. And then he transitioned, he created the St. Regis Solar, Hydrogen, and attracted a world-class team to develop the company for one reason. So his company, SRSH2, believes that people living in distressed rural communities deserve access to well-paying jobs, and that by working together, we can develop a model that will become a beacon of hope for rural America. So SRSH2 is Node 8 in the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub, which was recently awarded $1 billion for infrastructure development. He is currently the vice chair of the Project Advisory Committee for PNWH2. So George Bailey, thank you for being here, and I'll have you introduce your panel.
All right. I'd like to thank one of my favorite people in the world, Dave Strohmeyer. Sometimes when I'm thinking I'm the Energizer Bunny, I start watching him and I go, hey, I've got a lot more hours in the day. And Dan Bucks, we're just so blessed. And this whole community-based effort to change the world as we know it is so empowering. I'm going to show a couple slides, I think. Okay, so this is the hub. We were working for about 2 years, and last January, I think we really started in earnest with, we were accepted into the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub. And then we had to get the proposal out. And you can imagine if you're applying for $1 billion, what kind of work might be involved in, but we did it, and we got it. So then we found out in last October, we won. But again, the federal government doesn't just, hand out checks. They have a tendency when they give $1 billion that NEPA and other issues are important to them. And then, so we're hearing that on July 1st-ish, we're going to get our first tranche of money. And so we're really excited. And part of my panel, when I introduced Jason and the really cool Origin International team, how we are getting a lot of our other support financing. But from this picture, if you look at the middle one where there's a shipping container and a large, kind of like a propane tank, only it has an H2 on it. It's not a lot of, ours is 10 megawatts of solar. We're going to use the solar to power electrolyzers. The electrolyzers separate the hydrogen and the oxygen. You got the hydrogen, you store it, and it becomes a battery, just like a lithium-ion battery, where you can store hydrogen for 1 day, 1 week, 1 year, or 3 years. It doesn't, like diesel, you have to do a lot of treatment of it over time, but the hydrogen is basically nothing more than saving either wind, hydro, geothermal, solar, and then you can use it. And then how do you apply it? So next slide. These are the hubs, and again, when this all happens, people are going to go, how in the heck did it happen? And people like Dave that are so enlightened understands, and he came up with this concept of, if we're going to develop hydrogen in the United States, and we're going to have these 7 hubs that have $1 billion of funding to, accelerate hydrogen development. That's what the $1 billion is for. Why don't we have them work together? So right now we're working the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub, the Heartland Hub, and the Midwest Hub. And so you got Chicago to Seattle. And what'll happen is little towns like St. Regis, unincorporated town of 400, it's going to probably have somewhere around a $50 million infrastructure that's helping our tax base. We lost our mill, just like Sealy lost their mill here lately. We lost 100 jobs in November of 2021 anyway. And we're trying to get those jobs back, and we want jobs that are going to be there 50 years from now. Next slide. And again, there was a press release when we won our funding, and it said something like, St. Regis participates in a $1 billion federal project. And I'm going, even me, even Dave's clone could go, oh my God, how could we have be part of $1 billion? But we are. And so I'm on the board of directors for the Hub. The Hub is very interested in not only, supporting Washington and Oregon, Idaho, but they really want Montana. And with the effort that we're going to we're going to be helping little towns like Glendive and Webo, Three Forks, change what's going on in their world. All right, so I'm going to introduce, people say, you can't use hydrogen on a locomotive, and I go, well, I think maybe they're working on it, but I think after Danielle talks, you'll understand it. They're not only talking about it, they're doing it. So Danielle, and you can introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Danielle Squires. I'm from Alstom Transportation, based in California. I'm looking after the sales and business development for the West Coast, but also touching on zero-emission vehicles, and was happy to be part of the demo project that we had in Quebec last summer. So we're just going to give a quick video, then I've got a few slides just to go over it afterwards.
Silencieux, avec les vues panoramiques, avec les grands fenêtres comparé à une train ordinaire.
D'abord, c'est intéressant parce que c'est écologique. Le train à hydrogène est un pas dans la bonne direction.
Between a diesel and hydrogen fuel cell, I would definitely go with the hydrogen.
On va pouvoir le conseiller facilement à d'autres personnes.
Are all the things I didn't notice, like the noise or the smell. I would love to see something like this in British Columbia.
Very smooth ride and very quiet. It's not what I expected. It's a lot better than I expected.
It's just another way to show the world that Ontario and Quebec and Canada are working to reduce emissions, and it's also going to be an economic opportunity for our country and our provinces.
On réduit nos GES parce qu'il y a seulement des vapeurs d'eau qui sont émises par ce train-là. Un beau partenariat, et on va travailler pour continuer de s'affranchir du pétrole, d'électrifier nos transports et d'aller vers une économie puis un fonctionnement comme société le plus vert et le plus sobre en carbone possible.
That is the future. We have a great opportunity here in Alberta and in Canada to be one of the first jurisdictions in the world to have hydrogen trains. It's an amazing thing. Congratulations to all the people involved in this project. I think it's part of the future, and I hope you do too.
Places we've hunted and fished for years are being closed off, and Tim Sheehy would make it worse. Another out-of-state millionaire saying he would end protection.
Okay. Does this work? Next slide.
One of the things I'll say, while we're waiting for the slide, but that train, we're talking about running it up to Polson, down to the Bison Range, over Dixon, all the way to Paradise, down through St. Regis, Superior, Alberton. I was talking to Diane, and what a view when somebody was on a train and they saw the missions for the first time.
Yeah.
But we can do it.
Yeah, and like we said, we were super excited to get the first hydrogen train product in the North American market. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we were super excited to get the first hydrogen rail project going in North America last year. These are the few, I'm just going to go through a few slides now. But first of all, before we get into the island project and what it entailed, just a quick overview for those who don't know who Alstom are. We're a transportation manufacturer. We go anywhere from streetcars, high speed, light rail, commuter, regional, zero emissions, the services, full turnkey system solutions. So all your kit and caboodle for anything rail orientated. We've got over 4,000 employees in North America. Our headquarters are in Montreal. We're a French company. However, we've got a large footprint of manufacturing and offices in North America. So going back to the island project, as the video showed you, we were the first hydrogen rail. We were super excited. We had lots of interest. We had over 10,000 passengers. It was in operation for passenger, for commercial service, as well as for Alstom to bring over any delegates that were interested in going, including consultants, transit authorities, state, federal government officials. Anyone that was interested in coming was welcome. It was for 4 months last summer, from June to September, and it went from Quebec City to Charlevoix, which was, and it followed the St. Lawrence River. It was a beautiful route, and it was great to take people on. And obviously, in order for it to make it work, it wasn't just let's get a train from Europe and put it on a train in America. You had to have a huge collaboration of stakeholders and buy-in from not just us, but from the Quebec government, who was a huge huge political sponsor for us to bring the train over. The train to Charlevoix was a private line, and this is why it was chosen, because of the rail, the track that it was on followed European standards. So it was easier to bring a European train that was already in operational service since 2018, I believe, from Germany to bring it to Canada with minor modifications needed. Hanwha Energy was our supplier of green energy, and then H-Tech was the refueling supplier. These were just a few. Obviously, it involved a lot more, which we can go into. And here's a brief schematic of a very simplified train, how we had the original Lint, which is a DMU in Germany. You replace the diesel with hydrogen fuel cells, hydrogen packs on the roof, which mix with the air, with the oxygen, to produce electricity to flow through the battery pack and go to the powers the motor. Obviously, this is very simplified, so if anyone would like additional information on the actual technology, then I'd be happy to send it. So what did Alstom do, and how are we looking at the market? This slide just shows the great, enormous efforts and visions of all the Class 1 railroads and commuter railroads. Just a few of the commuter railroads are listed here, but for the freight side, the freight and commuter share tracks, so there's some commonality there, which needs to be considered. But there is a lot of diesel units currently on tracks that need to go towards a zero-emission future. All of the Class 1 railroads have set targets for 2030 to reduce significant, and some have committed to net zero by 2050, which is great. But in order to get there, these discussions need to happen, and we need to educate the market on what's available and what their choices are. So in order to go green, there's a cycle, and it's a continuous cycle and communication that's needed, starting with the alignment of stakeholders. Like here today, everyone from political operators, the community, rail manufacturers, anyone that would be affected or wants to participate in the project need to be aligned. The infrastructure plan means what's existing, what can we reuse, what do you need new? And it goes to the carrot and the stick. The carrot being the funding, what's going to be offered, what incentives can be done, how can we utilize this funding in order to maximize the benefit for the community. And the stick is obviously the federal emission bans and targets that are going to be met and how they can get to those. The technology readiness it's all very well talking about this, but who's ready to do it? Is anyone actually in a position to make the infrastructure, the trains, the tracks, the wayside, produce the hydrogen, supply the hydrogen, transport the hydrogen? It takes a lot of stakeholders, which again brings you back to the alignment of stakeholders. And again, from Alstom, we're a technology agnostic company. It's not just hydrogen that we're looking to communicate to the market. There's an array of options. You can have full electrification, but obviously the cost per mile is very high. But it depends on the capacity, the stops, the mission profile, the range. All these things need to be considered when you're considering which type of fuel to go zero emission. Battery is good if you have shorter distances to go, but hydrogen has been proved to go further with less refueling, and it can take more passengers. Here we're developing this set of products, rail products, for the North American market, adapted from the European service-proven Coradia Island product portfolio that's in Europe. We're bringing it over here and adapting it to the Odessia product platform. And again, as mentioned, being agnostic, it ranges from fully electrified, battery, hydrogen, and a hybrid as well. And it also can be used on retrofitting and overhauling existing assets that you have, because when you buy a train, it's obviously going to be part of your product portfolio for 30, 40 years. So you want to make sure that you're making the most of the asset that you currently have, and you don't have to buy new products. If you can retrofit, take out the diesel, replace it with battery, with hydrogen, a mix of the both for the future to get to the goals that you need to get to. And here, as we're talking about hydrogen, I touched briefly on it earlier, all of the different stakeholders and the different parts of the puzzle need to be. The train is just a small part of the whole ecosystem. In order to make it work, you need the production, the refueling, the storage, the transportation of the hydrogen to be in place, which is great. In discussions with the hydrogen hubs, because hopefully that ecosystem will really drive the push to produce the hydrogen that is required for not just transportation, but for the whole economy. And that's it from me.
Jack, do you want to do next?
Where's the mount? Is it this? Okay. Hi, good afternoon. Anecdotally, I'll just share with you that in the early 1960s, I was part of a group of my family and friends that took the Empire Builder from Minneapolis, Minnesota to ski in Whitefish, Montana. So it's a fabulous thing. This is my first time back in Montana since then, so a lot of time has gone by. I'm glad to be here today. It's very inspiring to see such a diverse group of people who are very excited about a topic that we all think is important, which is passenger rail in the United States. For some time now, Stadler has been involved in the hydrogen fuel cell. Whoops, wrong way. Should I go down or up? Down? Or, okay. I don't think you have the right one up, but that's all right. I sent a shorter version because I cut it more than half, but we'll try to get through this anyway. So Stadler is a substantial company. It's based in Switzerland. Since 2016, we've been very active by establishing a plant in Salt Lake City, Utah. So we have quite a footprint now in the U.S. basically, historically, we go back to the 1940s, developing trains of all kinds for various customers in Europe. Yeah, this isn't the right one, but I'll get through it. So we've sold over 11,000 trains in 44 countries. We have a diverse range of companies that operate principally in Europe, but now in the U.S. also. Flirt, that's one of our platform products that has been modified for hydrogen fuel cell capability. It stands for Fast, Light, Intercity, and Regional Train. I know it's kind of a sexy name, but we tend to have our trains use those names. We have another one called KISS, and that has a German explanation, which I'm not sure what it is. So here are our projects in North America. In fact, on the bottom right here, you'll see Metra in Chicago. We received the NTP on Wednesday from Metra in Chicago to supply them with 8 battery train sets with options of 8 more train sets plus an additional 32 coaches. So we can run in configurations of 2, 3, or 4 cars. What's driving all this? Okay, well, the climate change agenda is what's driving a lot of this. And you'll see that there are several states that already have mandated that you get to net zero eventually, and they all cover all kinds of different time frames. One of the things of note here, you'll note that in Europe and other countries, they have a lot of electrification. In the United States, you'll notice we don't have very much. So that's what's kind of driving some of the zero emission train design and development. In our terms of green solutions, we go back to 1943 when we developed our first train, and then it brings it all the way up to 2019 when 2019 was the year actually Stadler secured a contract with San Bernardino County Transportation Authority down in Southern California. At that time, they, SBCTA as we call it, they ordered 3 train sets from us. 2 of them were diesel multiple units. They're 2-car configuration. While I'm showing you a 4-car here, the San Bernardino ones have 2. And you'll notice that in the middle there's a short car. That's what we call our power pack. With that power pack, we can go diesel, we can go diesel battery hybrid, we can go battery only, or hydrogen. Hydrogen power pack also uses batteries to drive the traction motors. So it's sort of a hybrid also. And here, to accommodate these different types of propulsion, you need different lengths of the power pack. So we design and develop it based on what kind of propulsion it's using, the range that's required, and so that varies. In our 6-car train sets, we actually don't have a power pack. We can operate battery train sets without the power pack. With hydrogen fuel cell, we need the power pack. This is kind of an arrangement of what's in that power pack. You'll see that we need ventilation, we have fuel cell cooling, fuel cell processor outlet, and all these other things. And of course, you'll see we have a refueling point where it can either a nozzle, where you use a nozzle for that. Again, here's a summary, kind of the propulsion methods. This basically shows how the traction chain works in comparing diesel and hydrogen. And in deciding which way to go, of course, there are many decision factors that have to be made. And at the conclusion of the day, you either come up with diesel, you come up with hydrogen, you come up with battery, or a combination. So there are the alternatives. This gets a little too much in the weeds, so I'm going to skip past this one. Also, we look at trip distance in order to determine what is the best combination of things. And this comes down to, what people have to spend in terms of dollars, what kind of fuel you have available, if it's fuel, whether you have charging stations available, etc. I'm going to skip this one too deep in the weeds. So in terms of adoption of hydrogen, you'll notice that Europe is one of the big areas for where hydrogen's been developed. Our hydrogen fuel cell train for San Bernardino actually was built in Switzerland. We are now fully capable of migrating that production to our site in Salt Lake City. So if Buy America becomes a requirement, we're fully able to do it. We also placed a lot of upfront emphasis on safety and certification of our vehicles. We've worked very closely with the Federal Railroad Administration in terms of the homologation of these particular trains, the hydrogen fuel cell train. That in part was why we spent several months at Pueblo, Colorado, where you had a delegation come ride on our train and see it. And that testing is now complete, and the train is ready to ship to San Bernardino. San Bernardino is not quite ready for us, but it will ship soon. This is a process that we go through for train safety. What are the infrastructure requirements? You'll see up here on the upper right, we're using a trailer for San Bernardino at the moment. This was and it's supplied by Air Liquide. You can also have a different fueling setup, but there are various ways to do it, and it just depends on the availability of hydrogen and how it's transported or supplied from the local site. Again, here's different options for hydrogen supply. And then here's some cost factors for delivering it. That's too much in the weeds too. Our big win in California has been the state of California has purchased last year they purchased 4 hydrogen fuel cell trains. It's the 4-car configuration. And earlier this year, they exercised options for 6 more. There are additional 19 options available on that contract, and we expect the state of California to use them on a number of different routes. Again, here's a visual of the vehicle and how some of the seating configurations. Again, here's where it illustrates the power pack. You'll note that the speed we've increased the speed of this train up to 90 miles per hour. And again, there's an interior layout. And as I mentioned earlier, here's different configurations from 4 up to 6 cars. Interesting of a note, while we were in Pueblo, Colorado, we set the distance record for a hydrogen fuel cell train, 41.7 miles on one fueling. So that was pretty notable and created a lot of excitement. And I think I'm going to skip the rest of this. This goes into a lot of detail that probably you wouldn't other be interested in. So thank you very much.
Vishal? Vishal? Need to bring it down?
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I'm Vishal Agarwal. I'm based in Seattle, and I'm leading the business development activities for CHARGE. Pardon my allergies. Basically, CHARGE stands for Consortium for Hydrogen and Renewably Generated E-Fuels. So who we are an innovation cluster for Washington Department of Commerce. Basically, our mandate is to foster innovation and economic growth in a nascent industry sector, which is hydrogen in our case. And we do it by creating public-private partnerships and some other things that I'll cover in the next few slides. fairly briefly. George mentioned about Pacific Northwest and the hydrogen hubs, but I just wanted to elaborate here. One of the reasons we were able to win the hydrogen hub is the advantage that Pacific Northwest offers in terms of having one of the cleanest power grids in the country. We have one of the lowest electricity prices in the country. That dictates a lot of capex that is involved in producing hydrogen, as well as conducive policy and industry environment. And one of the critical things is a number of off-takers. That includes aviation, transport, trucking, refineries, maritime sectors. So that helped us win the hydrogen hub. So what are we doing in the hydrogen hub? Basically, our work on hydrogen started even before the hubs came into play. Our founder, he realized early on that hydrogen would be the next big growth engine. So he started, again, with the basic work of connecting entities together, understanding who the stakeholders are. And when the bipartisan infrastructure law was signed, then it's been last few years, we have been completely focused on the hydrogen hubs. We were involved in soliciting the request for information. We got about $15 billion worth of proposals, from which it was pared down to a few selected projects, out of which number 8, Montana, is what Georgia's project is, again, in the 3 states of Washington, Oregon, and Montana. So yeah, it's not a new news that we have the hub now. We are about to sign the contract, and the actual work will start. One thing I will add to what George said is this $1 billion by DOE is supplemented by several billion dollars that are industry match. So it's a fairly large sum. What we will be doing going forward in terms of hydrogen hub that is relevant to this discussion is we are participating in several initiatives by Department of Energy in terms of understanding what are the problems associated with the hydrogen sector. There's an initiative, CHITEC, which is a consortium for national labs, industry, and other stakeholders to figure out what is lacking to bring the costs down and to make hydrogen, more commercially viable. So we are representing Pacific Northwest Hub in that. One other thing that was created through that DOE did was put aside $1 billion for demand-side initiatives. So there is a foundation, Energy Future Initiatives, that has been awarded that $1 billion to understand how they can foster improvement in hydrogen demand, whether it's by paying the difference in the current price, that is for gray hydrogen versus green hydrogen. They'll pay for the contract difference until the market prices come down, just as it happened in solar sector. So we are part of that initiative as well from Pacific Northwest side. And one other thing that is relevant, again, to this discussion is business development, understanding how to grow the hydrogen economy in the region beyond the hydrogen hubs, create new projects, create market resilience, because projects might change, things might change. So we want to have a pipeline of a number of projects. So that's part of business development we'll do for the hub. Another work is market liftoff. Once again, creating a self-sustaining hydrogen economy and bring the costs down over next 8 to 10 years once the government funding is over. And then one of the very critical work that is being done is community outreach and workforce training. That's a requirement by DOE. And we formally report to Washington State University. So Washington State University is leading that effort. Sorry. Oops. Clicking on the wrong thing. Again, I'll probably not get into any more details of what we do, but again, based on what we have done over the last few years, we have a network of over 6,000 contacts and over 600 companies in our database that we kind of do an automated matchmaking in that sense, as to basically talking to people, understanding where the gaps are, where do they want to connect to create a project or an innovation R&D kind of activity. I'll skip this slide. This again just shows the automation. On this slide, I'll just mention that what we do systematically is, again, talk to the entities, understanding what their needs are, who they want to connect to, and then follow it all the way through, leading to either an infrastructure project or an innovation project. And we are still in the beginning stages of this thing. And this is how, we were lucky to find George and, have him as part of the Hydrogen Hub. One other thing that is needed and what we have started doing is innovation working groups. Basically, this involves industry coming together, even if they are competitors and various stakeholders, to understand what needs to be done to, again, lift off a sector. So, for example, hydrogen refueling infrastructure. How do you understand where the production is, where the demand is, how much of the cost is to store, what are the different ways of storing, and who are the off-takers? So this is one thing we will continue doing, and our next focus would be on understanding the hydrogen refueling infrastructure. And we are also talking to other hubs like Arches, California Hub, and to British Columbia about I-5 corridor, and probably we'll have some similar discussions with George on what can we do in this region. Again, balancing demand and supply while keeping the costs down. This I just want to mention in terms of market liftoff. Basically, we have a portfolio of projects that we keep in our database. We have detailed information on the projects, and we keep going back to it on a whatever frequent basis to understand where people are, what are the gaps, and then make more connections or start looking into government funding or trying to connect them with researchers, because we are part of Washington State University and we work closely with several national labs to understand what innovations are needed to bring the costs down. And some other thing we do as a cluster organization are knowledge sharing and communications, because this is a new sector. So a lot of it is about education, having people understand what this hydrogen economy means, what are the pluses, what are the issues, and what are we doing to solve it. So we do it through, again, communication channels, through webinars, and through newsletters and other things. I guess I'll just leave it there because that's most of the work that we do.
Thank you. The next sectional is probably the most important. I want to direct attention to the back. There's two gentlemen standing. Wave your hands. It's Origin International, and these guys are great. One of my favorite movies is Jerry Maguire, and there's a scene with like Jerry, the football player goes, "Show me the money, Jerry." And so when you talk about having a really cool hydrogen fuel cell train set moving around Flathead Valley and connecting people and stuff, there's a lot of money involved, but there's a lot of money out there. And so we start with Origin International, and then our next speaker is going to talk about what his company is doing for not only the state of Hawaii, but could do right here in Montana. Jason.
All right, hello everyone. Let's see, I'll struggle with the clicker here as well. My name is Jason Hewitt. I'm the managing partner of infrastructure for Sustainability Partners. And it dawned on me as I was listening to all the presentations of how smart George is. So if you don't know him, you should probably get to know him. So, because what I realized is that we may be a solution to the challenges that you guys are going to face. He asked me to present about the work that we're doing in Hawaii, which is on EV vehicles. Now, in my mind, I'm like, well, George, I'm coming to a rail conference, and you're asking me to detail about EV vehicles. And I thought maybe he just, was trying to fill a slot or something like that. But it turns out he's not. And I'm going to go through that because I just realized that as everyone else is talking. So what do? Sustainability Partners, we do infrastructure funding. We're what's called a public benefit company. We are for profit, but everything that we do has got to be to the benefit of the public. And we work with a variety of government entities and try to fulfill their needs in a very unique way. Basically, what we do is provide the infrastructure of their choice on a month-to-month service contract. So we remove the CapEx barrier, and that's what I realized George really wants me to talk about today. So what are we doing in the state of Hawaii? So the state of Hawaii made really set two aggressive goals. One, by 2035, to go EV with their fleets, in 2045, really to transition to a zero economy. So how do you do that, right? So it's like, all right, well, we've made this goal. What do we do next? And just like you guys are doing here, what they looked at is what are our challenges? And the number one challenge always is money. So what we did was we, along with the state's Department of Transportation Development, we've basically gone in and we have a state contract that has extended out to just about every state agency. And the first thing is that, hey, we want to convert our light-duty vehicles to EV. So we provide the vehicle of their choice on a month-to-month service contract on a per-mile, per-month basis. So they want a F-150 Lightning or a Tesla Model Y, or, it's now gone into street sweepers and other types of vehicles. So there's no upfront capital cost. And we provide the vehicle plus the charging infrastructure, which means now we are constructing and building microgrids to support the charging infrastructure to supply this to, state agencies and now local entities as well. So one of the things you always hear about is when you're adopting new technology, we've heard it today, when you're adopting new technologies and new things, there's always this big upfront, again, this CapEx barrier that you have to get over. So I think probably most would agree that electric vehicles cost more than, ICE vehicles, right? That's probably consensus in this room. So before the conference, we said, okay, well, we've got now 2 years of providing this type of service to the state of Hawaii. Let's start digging into some numbers. And what we found is and these are accurate as of 2024, the monthly average cost to have a vehicle, the use of a vehicle, not the ownership, so not the debt or the equity payments or costs that you may have in the state of Hawaii. So think insurance, fuel, maintenance, think those things, is $1,390 a month. That feels high, right? It does feel high, but that's what the costs are. So we went back through and looked at across all of the fleets that we're providing, and it's a variety of vehicles at different price points. So we supply a lot of Tesla Model Ys to the state and local governments there, and it actually averages $664 a month, and that's an all-in cost, including the vehicle itself. So if I could give you a Tesla Model Y for $664 a month, and that was all you paid, would you take it? Right? You would take it. So that's the offer that we have to all the state agencies. Basically, hey, convert your fleet. There's a mandate to do it. Go to our website, fill out the form, pick what vehicle you want, and these are the types of results that you're getting. So just a couple of things that we're doing, and Hawaii is going to be a hydrogen economy as well. They are not very happy that they did not get a hydrogen hub. I will tell you that. But you know, they're moving towards zero the best they can. We're providing a number of different types of vehicles from, you know, Tesla Model Ys to a number of electric utility vehicles, wiki passenger shuttles, which are autonomous electric shuttles that are now available at the airports there in Hawaii, and along with the charging infrastructure. So if you kind of replace this electrification kind of model, your slide that had all the stakeholders and everybody involved, that's what the state of Hawaii is doing, and we're enabling them to do that. So just a few more, again, you know, electric vehicles, autonomous electric vehicles, and others. And the other thing that we're doing is in all the transportation hubs, we're providing electrification there. So at all the airports, electrification of ramp vehicles and service vehicles and things of that nature. So again, kind of removing that CapEx barrier, turning everything into an OpEx expenditure, and reaping the benefits of the savings that go along with it. And that's it. Thank you.
So before we get into questions, when I started researching this company, you saw Senior Vice President Tom, who used to be the Vice President of BlackRock. So most people in the room that know money know BlackRock. So it's not rocket science what we're doing here. Jen says she needs a hydrogen fuel cell bus or a zero emissions fueling station. You put it on their side of the books, and then you pay a use fee, and they're very flexible. If you get a minute, talk to them, because it is really the way that we're going to be able to do what we're needing to do. Dave, when we were talking about the 10% match in the next phase and 20, they can give you a 100% match if they needed, if it helped the project. And so it's not like there's not enough money in these pension funds and public employee funds. There's trillions of dollars. So that's what Jason and his team represents. And it makes us in Montana. How does a little town like St. Regis, you know, play the game? We're going out to the airport. We have a lease that we're negotiating with the Missoula Airport. They have about 360 acres. And we'll be out there at 1 o'clock today, and we're going to look at putting somewhere around a 10-megawatt solar array, hydrogen production facility, hydrogen fuel cell. Everyone knows that Missoula County and City has been working with Northwestern Energy on decarbonizing, 100% decarbonization by 2030. We are going to help Northwestern do that, not only here, but probably in Bozeman too. So it is possible, and I guess my message I just presented at a hydrogen workshop on Tuesday, I think it was, in Spokane. Just do it. We can do it. We're Montana. We don't have to be last. Okay, so any questions anybody has of the panel? Diane. I can't make Jason. You want to? Are you saying, hey, do we have the natural resources available?
I'm just curious as far as, I mean, obviously with diesel and coal and all that, we know that it's more polluting. Thank you. But I'm thinking about other natural resources, water.
what are the problems with, George, you know what I'm talking about. I think you're
So one of the places, if you're in Missoula, you know that in the past, Missoula at their wastewater treatment plant had to discharge into the river, primarily in the winter months. Out at St. Regis, we have a wastewater treatment plant. One of the things we're looking at is polishing the water that comes out of the ponds and then using it for hydrogen production. So yes, we do have the resources. We have sunshine, we have wind, we have geothermal, and all you need is those, and then you can make hydrogen. And hydrogen's nothing more than a lithium-ion battery on steroids, because you can store the hydrogen for, like I said, a day, a month, a year, 3 years, and then it'll be there. So we have all the resources. We're going to prove probably in 3 locations in the next 12 months how well it can be done and how quickly it can be done.
We have a question from the online and this, I think, relates. This is really almost an Amtrak question about the new Aero train sets. Will the Aero train sets, which is, as I understand, is a Siemens product, how will the Aero train set be compatible with hydrogen in the future, and will it be? Does anyone know the answer to that?
Well, they're currently diesel train. They have diesel locomotives. So it depends on if someone has a diesel locomotive developed that can actually take those the distance they need to go. And currently, they just have to change out the locomotive. So it's very simple to go to hydrogen, but that particular type of locomotive is not very far in development yet.
Okay, so that's the answer for the online question. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, hi. This is a question for Alstom and Stadler. Are you using compressed or liquefied hydrogen? And I also have a couple other questions.
We used gas for the island that was coming over in Canada, and we're looking for gas in the North American product as well.
And we'll use whatever we are given, and we'll make the adaptations that are necessary.
Okay. We'd really like to connect with you sometime during this conference. Not sure if a lot of folks know, but there's also another Department of Energy supported hydrogen project in eastern Montana outside of Culbertson, and it will actually be producing about 80 times more hydrogen than in St. Regis at a much lower cost of production. So, and at a very low carbon intensity. So we'd love to talk to you about that, and also work with St. Regis to make sure that both the western side of Montana and the eastern side of Montana have good hydrogen supplies. So this wouldn't be the North Dakota-based hydrogen hub. This would actually be Montana hydrogen fueling Montana trains. And I think that's the way we should kind of focus. My other question is for... Sure. My name is John Muse, 4th generation Montanan. I am the co-founder and CEO of ScienH2 LLC, which is a military veteran-based small business in Montana. And we've been looking at low-cost, high-volume, low-carbon hydrogen production opportunities since 2020. So my other question is for George.
I'm sorry, we have a question over here. If we could alternate a little bit so that. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Derek Hitt. I'm had a couple quick questions for you guys on the prolonged storage. I was on one of the seminars with a couple of the environmental people, and they did talk about the potential of hydrogen leaching through certain metals. How are you going to address that and possibly combat that? Is there going to be a maintenance schedule on those hubs, or are you guys just trying to go through the product fast enough that you didn't have to prolong storage?
the hydrogen's been produced in millions of tons for years. It's used a lot in the refinery business, hydrocracking, but a lot of the development is developing materials that withstand. My understanding is hydrogen makes like traditional steel brittle, and so there's a lot of new composites. But do you guys know about what you're using on your train sets? That yeah, it's just used for a short period of time, but the storage, we have our engineers here, so we can get with them, but the technology is being developed, or has already been developed, and then it's being used.
I would go back. Oh, yeah, that's okay.
Oh, my follow-up was for George. That $1 billion, I've heard about 95% to 98% is going to Washington State and Oregon. How much of that $1 billion is actually coming to Montana? Thank you.
We're looking at about $5 million of cost share from them, from the hydrogen hub. Yeah. Yeah.
George, we have a question over here from Bruce.
Bruce Agnew with Pacific Northwest Economic Region. We're proud to say that St. Regis is one of the 10 projects in the Northwest that we are pledged to accelerate funding for, and so George has been a great partner. My question for the panel has to do with systems integration. You have this transmission system, BPA, and utilities, public and private. You have the transportation, rail, ports, trucking, interstates, and then you have the hydrogen hubs. And your potential customers are mining, agriculture, repurposing coal mines and old aluminum smelters in the Northwest. A lot of power needs. We don't have enough power, enough clean power in the Northwest to do that, to decarbonize the system. But how do you get all these players, the governments and private sector players, to work together to integrate those systems so that the investments made by the public sector, the $1 billion in federal funding, leverages private capital to get the best result in the quickest timetable?
I guess I'll answer that, but I think Danielle, summed it up. Your train set that you were using in Canada, it was a partnership, private-public partnership, and Bruce is part of what's called the Pacific Northwest Economic Region. So it's all the states, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana, and Alaska, but the Canadian provinces. He's another gentleman you need to talk to because they really have done tremendous work. But I think we're getting really close to the end. But I guess in summary, we can do it. We have to, rely on all these really talented people. John has just worked his tail off, and with his project in Culbertson. But isn't it cool that we can have a hydrogen production facility in a little town like Culbertson and down at Three Forks and maybe at Glendive? So it's all good stuff.
Hi again. Derek Hitt with the Montana AFL-CIO. I was wondering, since you did talk about losing the sawmill there, how many jobs are you looking at to have in the St. Regis area?
There's stationary ones, but we just found out that about 50, for the plant. But now Affordable Workforce Housing Manufacturing Company, knowing that we have renewable energy or, decarbonized energy, is looking, we're going to have a meeting at 3 o'clock, guys, team, in St. Regis, and looking at, they produce about 1,000 affordable workforce houses each year, and that one will probably be 75 to 100 people. So it just kind of, but I'd like to say the hub is dedicated, and the Montana, the St. Regis hub, working with labor, because we were just at that conference at Spokane and International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. We need good paying union jobs, and we need training, you know, and it's all there, but we can't walk past our own people, and we're not going to do that.
We have one last question from the audience here and then an online question.
My question is pretty basic. It's just to build on his question as far as transitioning over from traditional power sources or energy forces to hydro. What does that do to the job market? What does it do? Does it provide an equal amount of jobs overall, or are we losing jobs? I mean, I'm just curious as a union supporter. And
I think we're gaining jobs. It's going to be different, but I think we're gaining jobs. And I don't know if you've been to St. Regis lately, but we created this thing. It's called the Center for Applied Technology, and with the support of the state and some federal funds, we were able to put a training program in. And so the training program is starting earlier. The St. Regis project, I'm really proud to say, there's the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. And in Richland, Washington, they started a thing called Horn Rapids. And that's where I got the idea. I tried to talk to the people in Colstrip about possibly doing it. They thought it was a little bit kind of on the edge, and they were afraid it might be perceived wrong. But we took the idea for what from Richland, the International Brotherhood of Electric Workers. And so I think we're going to gain jobs in Montana.
Dave, I want to refer this last question for future use later in the conference, but it's from Vern Raincock, and it's way beyond the scope of this panel. Here is the question. Is there a parallel international bilateral process to study north and south corridors, including the proposed project linking Edmonton, Calgary, Lethbridge to Montana's Empire Builder and North Coast Hiawatha? We'll refer that to the future, I assume, but...
Yes, another small question right before the break, so we will hold on to that one. We're gonna break now, and if folks have other additional questions for our esteemed panel members, please hit them up during the break or any of the breaks. Before we split here, for folks who have registered for lunch to go ahead and grab your lunch and come back to the room, Dan Bucks has a special announcement.
Our partner, Explorer Maps, a Missoula business that does incredibly creative maps of the landscapes of the world and connects people and places through art. And if connecting people and places sounds familiar and an overlap with trains, they thought so too, and they donated this design to the authority. And we have 50, only 50, limited edition signed maps of the Greater Northwest Passenger Rail. They are beautiful. We have merchandise that uses these as well. But there will only be 50 of these limited edition maps. And by the way, the illustrations here come from ideas from people along this route, from rail advocates, the All Aboard groups. Elaine particularly wondered about the Shoshone Falls in Idaho. It is prominently featured there. That's Elaine Clegg's very illustration on there, dedicated to her. These are available. They're limited edition and signed, only 50 ever, and they're available for $300 each. We have them we have 11 of them in packages here. So they are available out there at the entrance to this conference. Thank you very much.
And we will throw in a set of indestructible cutlery with each one of these. So let's give our panel another round of applause. So go get something to eat and come back. We have a great lunch program for you, and we'll see you back here in just a few minutes.